All right, currently at 9:33, we have partly cloudy skies, 53 degrees at the Puffy Muffin in Brentwood. To the north in Hendersonville, it is fair and 49. Downtown on Music Row, statues are naked, skies are partly cloudy. It's 51 degrees. Feels like 49 in Nashville at WTN. Market, Dow's down 41 bucks at 34,204. NASDAQ up 27 at 11,919, and the S&P is up 3. 2 out of 3 are in the green, but the market is basically flat. Well, it's a new year. But obviously you may be in the same pain you were in last year or the year before or the decade before. Back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain. Why do you keep living with it? At the Dr. Gill Center in Franklin, I know a lot of you know us for chiropractic care, and we're not ashamed of that. Chiropractic care really works. But we got all the state-of-the-art equipment too, like our Class 5 laser, our red light therapy. Dr. Gill was the pioneer bringing spinal decompression therapy to Middle Tennessee. That was a game changer. Separation without a scalpel, pinched nerves, unpinched, bulging herniated discs, repositioned. No needles, no downtime, real solutions, real pain-free living, and back to doing the things you love. And all of these techniques are designed to pinpoint inflammation in the body, reduce pain, swelling, and accelerate healing. So, don't do nothing. Don't settle for a pill. It all begins with an accurate diagnosis, and it's only $23 now at the Dr. Gill Center. That covers your extensive exam, any and all x-rays and imaging, and your diagnosis. Take advantage of the $23 special and make the goal to be pain-free. Dr. Gill, call today. New number, 882-4838, 882-4838. That's 882-4838. Online at callmepainfree.com.
Cars for Kids. K-A-R-S, Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today. 1-877 Cars for Kids. K-A-R-S, Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
With car prices at an all-time high, our donors are now getting highest receipts ever. Donate at carsforkids.org, and your car can be picked up tomorrow.
1-877 Cars for Kids. K-A-R-S, Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate.
7:39, 21 minutes before 10 o'clock. Information fueled, opinion driven. That's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am Michael DelGiorno. This is, I'm not the fan of Drudge I used to be, but here's the headlines on Drudge. Rumors swirl about mysterious objects as officials stay mum. Why are we suddenly shooting things out of the sky? NORAD doesn't rule out aliens. New UFO task force being formed. Oh, don't keep reading, then you're going to get to inflation, and that's bad news. All right, James Carafano is a lieutenant colonel, one of the top military and foreign policy minds, and one of the largest think tanks in the world, the Heritage Foundation. You can read him and his colleagues' great work anytime at heritage.org, and he joins us now. All right, well, we know what the first one was, and we know he waited till it surveyed all of our military sites before shooting it over the ocean outside of the Carolinas. What was 2? What was 3? What was 4? And are we skeet shooting drones? What the hell are we doing, and why is nobody talking?
Can we deal with the UFO thing first? Because, first of all, they call it science fiction for a reason, because it's fiction, right? If you actually read the science on extraterrestrials, and you're geeky like I am, and you do, one of the things that you find is that in order to do intergalactic space travel, the level of energy and technology you need is at a level like far beyond anything on Earth at all.
Right.
And so if aliens actually came here, we might not even notice them, and they might not even notice us, because our differential would be so vast. Having said that, they're not going to come in a balloon, for God's sake.
Well, no.
Like
No, what if we find out, James, that, the advanced cultures are still doing balloons and bicycles?
So for a U.S. government official to say, well, I'm not ruling out anything, even UFOs, is just stupid. I mean,
well, first of all, we say UFO, unidentified flying object. That's now synonymous due to the sci-fi world with aliens from other worlds. It just means apparently they can't identify what it was. Certainly they would have identified it before they shot it, right?
Yeah. So here's the reality. And this is I think my great frustration with the U.S. government, because it's so obvious what's going on here, that why don't they just come out and say this is mind-boggling. And I can tell you why. But look, here's what's happening. As a matter of fact, the U.S. government just recently announced something that we actually have already known, that China now has more ICBM launchers than we do. So these are the long-range ballistic missiles, all Dr. Strangelove, that you attack a country with nuclear weapons with. So that is a useless tool unless you can actually target your enemy and hold them at risk. And obviously cities, they're not hard to find. But I think people think, well, why do you have to target a missile silo with nuclear weapons? Just, blow up Montana or something. And it's actually not that easy. As big and powerful as nuclear weapons are, missile silos, even command and control facilities, even scrambling things from airfields, these things are all designed to survive nuclear attack. And so you actually, even with a very big nuclear weapon, you need to precisely target nuclear infrastructure in order to hold it at risk. Difficult to do with a satellite for 2 reasons. One is the Earth rotates. We know what time they're overhead. We just cover everything up we don't want them to see. And also, they're really not overhead for that long. They're just a couple of minutes, and they're collecting all this data. What is the perfect surveillance instrument to gather targeting data on this stuff against the United States? And that is what's called SIGINT, Signals Intelligence, and MASINT, which is like emissions, like radar things and stuff like that. Best way to collect that is from a balloon at altitude, no line of sight problem, and long linger time. So it's a perfect collection tool for that. So obviously that's what's going on here. We know that for a couple of reasons. One, we shot the Chinese balloon down. It's a Chinese balloon. It has SIGINT capability on it. It was trying to communicate with China. The communications were encoded. A big surprise there. And it was, and look, and the path it took was over all of our nuclear targets.
Well, that was the dead giveaway, right? So that criticism.
Now, here's the other ones, right? Listen to the other ones, right?
Okay.
So even though we don't have physical evidence yet, right? For the Chinese to do this is serious stuff, and it would not be surprising that they would have multiple vehicles with different configurations flying at multiple different altitudes, looking for gaps and spaces in U.S. radar and air defense coverage, because they'd probably only get one big shot at this, and they would probably do that over a couple of days. So is the other things consistent with what we would expect in a targeting surveillance campaign? The answer is absolutely yes. So here's the point that I was trying to make, which is what I just described to you. I do not have access to any classified information. I was in the military for 25 years. I've read a lot of Tom Clancy novels. I get that, but literally anybody could figure this out. And why the U.S. government can't publicly talk about this and just explain this to people, that's what really ticks me off.
Well, they didn't with COVID, and they're certainly not with this. Is it because would they rather us be worried about aliens from outer space than them have to give us an explanation for A, transparency in what's happened, and B, what our course of action is, and to send a powerful deterring message to an enemy that's going too far? I mean, do they not know what to do, and that's why they're mum?
But yeah, I think this gets to the core of the real issue with the whole story, which is it demonstrates the fundamental flaw in Biden's foreign policy towards China. On the one hand, Biden wants to look tough on China because Americans want the U.S. to be tough on China. But on the other hand, he doesn't want to be tough on China. He wants John Kerry to fly over there and, have chow mein with Xi and, cut ribbons at coal plant openings and stuff, So he wants to be tough on China, but not tough on China at the same time. That is an unworkable strategy. And they've actually tried to do it here. Like, they knew this was coming. They knew it was a surveillance balloon. They said nothing about it. They still planned on sending Blinken to China, who was 0 for 3 in talking to the Chinese. So I'm not sure what that was all about. But and the only reason why they responded to this is they would have let the balloon fly over the United States and never said a word, except it broke in the news. And it wasn't even after it broke in the news. I mean, if you actually look at the timeline, when they canceled the Blinken visit, they canceled the visit after they got all the blowback about the story.
Right. Yeah, it was the blowback. Thanks to Jim Inhofe, a United States senator who, a lot of people think of him as too hawkish. I have known Jim for 35 years. And when I was 28, 32, 35 years old, this senator gave me a lot of time, and I was access to a lot of wisdom. Let's just put it that way. And only because of him, during a Cold War when everybody was focused on the Soviet Union, and even later after it fell, Russia, he was always fixated on China. That's proving to be the right focus. And his message was really simple. We keep depleting our military. We keep downsizing our arsenal. We keep letting our arsenal age and antiquate. And they're building up boots on the ground. They're building up technology. They're building up missile systems, delivery systems. If we ever have a problem with China, it's not going to be a good outcome. So after decades of that at a very young age, now with children getting ready to leave for college and grandchildren on the horizon, is China somebody we can afford to mess with and is put our mind at ease? I mean, obviously they have the delivery systems and the advantage. Now they're doing this targeting and surveillance. Why isn't there a greater concern that somebody is either trying to saber rattle at a very high level or is planning on doing something, or at least getting you in a position of checkmate so that they can move on Taiwan and not get any resistance? What could be the motives behind all this, and why now?
Well, I mean, it's very clear. Look, nobody builds a massive nuclear arsenal, and their intent is to have a nuclear arsenal that is as big, if not bigger, than the U.S. and Russia. And the intent is to do exactly what people use massive nuclear arsenals for, and that is to intimidate your enemy. This is the notion. I'm going to do something, and if I do that, are you willing to lose Washington or New York or Seattle or maybe we would be willing to lose. but you get the point. Is it doesn't end confrontation, it doesn't end war, but you want to force your enemy into pausing to let you do what you damn well please. And we have a perfect example of this and how this works in real life right in front of us, which is the war in Ukraine. Regardless, Russia is losing the war in Ukraine. They're losing it because we're giving Ukraine aid to fight them. And they're never going to expand the war against us because that would put nuclear forces in confrontation. Conversely, is we're supporting Ukraine, but we're never going to send American combat troops into Ukraine, and no other country at NATO is either, because we're not going to risk a direct nuclear confrontation with Russia. That's how nuclear weapons work. China wants that kind of power. And whether it's someday trying to take over Taiwan or do something else, they want to have that power and authority. And I got to tell you, if you really want to be losers, this is how this works. We have three elements of our triad to hold the Chinese at risk: missiles, long-range bombers, and nuclear submarines. This targeting mission essentially would take our first strike capability, missiles and bombers, off the table because it would blow them up. So that would just leave us with
nuclear subs, but they have an advantage there too, don't they?
No. Here we go. We have a massive advantage, and the advantage is our nuclear submarines are powered by nuclear power, which means they can go out for a long time and they can go very long distance, and they're super, super quiet. So they're virtually invulnerable. So you could kill every nuclear weapon we have. Some captain in a nuclear submarine alone has enough nuclear weapons to make China's day horrible. What does China have? China has a diesel-powered submarine force. They are noisy and they can't travel as far. We can kill all those things. Except if China controls all the waters between Taiwan and the South China Seas, that space becomes a no-go zone for the U.S., which means that we can't do anti-submarine warfare in that space, which means that China could take their diesel submarines, they could put them out in those waters, sink them down, and they could just sit there on the bottom, and they would be every bit as invulnerable as our nuclear deterrent. So what China is working for is between taking Taiwan and the South China Seas and building up a conventional missile force to checkmate our entire nuclear triad. That's where they're going.
9:51. Visiting with James Carafano. For those of you that are just joining us, it's pretty obvious. Nobody's going to tell you anything about the second strike, third strike, fourth strike. Maybe they don't know what to do. Maybe they don't want to tell you the truth. This is all, even the different altitudes are all very consistent with targeting of sites, which is very, very concerning. All right, can you just get rid of that for 1 second? I know it's going to make us just a little bit late, but what should this administration be doing right now and in the days and weeks ahead?
Well, we should be doing something that is proportional. The Chinese have just launched a major targeting effort over the United States, which was both illegal. And by the way, for the balloons that were flying under 60,000 feet, they were a menace to air traffic. They were putting people's lives at risk. Okay, so we don't have to do something. We have to do the same thing, but we should do something proportional. They should feel the pain. No Chinese tourists. Pull all the ambassadors, kick their ambassadors out. Really, really lifty stuff that really just shocks the Chinese out of their shoes. And instead, we're just trying to lowball. Oh, it's not really a big deal. Oh, we got this under control. Don't worry, right? So when can John Kerry book his hotel room in Beijing?
Never mind that. Let me ask you one quick question: is there any chance that this is they must have uncertainty about Joe Biden. They must have some uncertainty about Donald Trump resurfacing. And if Donald Trump resurfaces, they don't want to get in that economic pinch that he put him in the first time. So they're trying to set a table to make this much harder on. Any chance this is Trump preparation, or any DeSantis or any Nikki Haley or conservative peace through strength type of advancement prior to them getting in control?
It's two things. One is now they have all these nuclear missiles. They're useless unless they get targeted. They've got to get targeting data. So I think in their mind it's worth the risk. The other is if not now, when?
Right. If you're going to take the risk, do it now. I get it.
Look at now. You can do this and get away. And the reality is regardless of how successful the mission was, the Chinese did this, and in their perspective, they got away with it. They're not paying a price for this.
Meanwhile, we got Russian fighter jets off the coast of Alaska as well. There's just nowhere to rest your eyes, is there?
Yeah. We like to call those Russian fighter jets off the coast of Alaska. Fun targets for the F-35.
Yeah, but all right. How concerned people are listening as moms and dads? How concerned should they be?
Well, they should be very concerned. They have a president that doesn't know how to handle the biggest strategic foe that we have in the world. I mean, Is everything going to look? China doesn't want a war. People say, "Oh, it's going to World War III." China doesn't want to fight World War III. They want to keep things going the way they are because they're eating our lunch.
Yeah, right now they're
So
winning. They're winning without fighting. That's the only thing we got going for us.
When you're eating somebody's lunch, you do not blow up the cafeteria.
Well, I just like to say for the record, the one time that we did sit down and eat pasta, I never ate your pasta. 9:54. If you want to read James Carafano's great work, you can do so at heritage.org and the work of his colleagues. Thanks so much for your time. Love you, my brother. All right, 9:54. News is next.
We don't expect the same size jacket to fit every kid. Why do we expect the same school to fit every kid? Traditional public schools work for most kids, but for others, nonprofit charter schools are a better fit, where students can excel with more individualized instruction and hands-on lessons to meet their needs. And studies show that when nonprofit charter public schools and traditional public schools work together, all our kids rise. Nonprofit charter schools, free, public, and open to all.
Visit publiccharterswork.com to learn more.
Sturvis Liquidation welcomes the new year with tons of new ways to save for your home or business. More great deals on flooring than ever before. Porcelain tile in several colors and sizes, only 39 cents per square foot. And a huge selection of floating luxury vinyl plank starting at just 99 cents per square foot. Remember, Sturvis Liquidation is your headquarters to save tons of money on appliances, HVAC, and much, much more. Easily save 40 to 60% off what you would pay at a big box store. Shop us in Murfreesboro or anytime at SturvisLiquidation.com.
Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earn doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously, though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
Think mortgage rates are still super high? Think again. Rates have plummeted to 5-month lows. Call Loan Pronto now to see how low rates are. It may be time to do that refinance you've been putting off or time to get back to house hunting. If you're like a lot of people, you have way too much credit card debt right now and you're getting fleeced with 20+% interest charges every month. Or maybe your current home rate is over 6%. Listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto, wipe out those cards, close in about 14 days, and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. Right now, Loan Pronto is doing refis with APRs in the 4s. Call now to take advantage of this big rate drop. Get those credit cards to zero, start that home improvement project, or get out of that 7% loan you were forced into last year. Call 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780. LoanPronto.com. 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender. NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval. NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
WWTN, Hendersonville, Nashville, from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Studios.
And the Mark Spain Real Estate WTN Newsroom. Information fueled, opinion driven.
This is Nashville's news and talk leader.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Checking traffic. We've got some crashes in the way. Right now, 24 westbound at Spring Street, Ellington Parkway. Then 40 eastbound at Jefferson Street. In Brentwood, 65 northbound at Old Hickory Boulevard. And then at Montgomery County, you've got I-24 eastbound at MLK Parkway in Clarksville. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Well, the January report shows inflation continued to cool year to year, but not month to month. Elizabeth Schulze says prices for everyday goods are still roughly $400 more a month for them compared to a year ago.
The Fed has already raised interest rates 8 times in a row. There will be another inflation report before the Fed meets again, but it's very clear there is still work to be done to help easing prices for Americans.
And Michigan State University police have identified the gunman from last night's campus rampage, but they don't know the motive. This is Deputy Police Chief Chris Roseman.
We have absolutely no idea what the motive was at this point. We can confirm that the 43-year-old suspect had no affiliation to the university.
He's identified as Anthony Dwayne McRae, and they say he shot and killed 3 people, injured 5 others before killing himself. Right now in Tennessee, Democrats are blasting bills Republicans are pushing that moves the state closer to true constitutional carry of firearms. Nashville State Senator Heidi Campbell takes issue with one bill, which would lower the permitless carry age from 21 to 18.
Law enforcement has stated emphatically that they are opposed to this. You know, this is when kids are developing their frontal lobes, their judgments.
Another bill, House Bill 120, would extend permitless carry from just handguns to also shotguns and rifles. And right now in Tennessee, a bill banning gender-affirming treatment for kids getting closer to the governor's desk. The full state Senate passed it yesterday. The House version will be taken up in committee starting tomorrow. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I don't know if you're listening and you're in your 30s, maybe you're in your 40s, 50s, or older than me in your 60s or 70s, what you thought the future would look like. I think everybody consistently had, and this includes Back to the Future, which was roughly, 1986? Flying cars. And that may be coming to Dubai. That much I expected. Obstacle courses for sperm? Not so much. But I have the update for you next. News brought to you by
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver." Unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
So is this the year you finally get that closet, guest room, media center, pantry, or laundry room super organized? It's Kurt Schusterman, owner of California Closets Nashville. Look, we know you have lots of options, but when reliability matters, when quality matters, when design matters, California Closets Nashville is really your best option. Contact us for a free in-home design consultation and check us out at our Cool Springs or Nashville showrooms or at CaliforniaClosets.com.
From the Beacon Capital Management Weather Center.
All right, currently at 10:08, we have partly cloudy skies, 56 degrees in Nashville. It feels like 54 at WTN. The market is starting to fall and fall quickly. The Dow is now down 190 at 34,054. NASDAQ down 21 at 11,870. It was up triple figures. The S&P is now down 12 at 4124. All three are in the red, led by the Dow. We're calling the market now slightly down at 10:09. I'm Michael DelGiorno for Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. I make it this simple. They're the best and the most affordable. And I don't know if you need maintenance. I don't know if you need instant repair. I don't know if you need to really consider strongly replacement, but they're the go-to company. They do residential, light commercial. They service all brands, all technologies, conventional and geothermal. They're recognized by Rheem, one of the leading brands, as providing customers with the highest level of year-round comfort and service. They're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi. If electric heat and air is your necessity or choice, we have the best products, pricing, and maintenance programs. And if it comes to replacement, interest-free financing, 18 to 60 months, same as cash. We can't exceed $125 for maintenance. You should do your air conditioners in the spring. I have 3 units. You may have more than that, 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. It cannot exceed $125 a home. You get that back in energy efficiency, but you ultimately save hundreds avoiding emergency repair and thousands avoiding early replacement. And, of course, we're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. So for the best and the most affordable, for maintenance, repair, or replacement, trust who I trust. Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. 784-4424, 784-4424, or online at efficienthvac.net.
Information fueled, opinion driven. This is the Michael DelGiorno Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
10:10 in the morning at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I thought about putting about 5 or 6 stories into a Living in America update, and then I thought, you know what? Each individual one is too important to get lost in some sort of a montage. And they all have kind of a central theme that most in radio and television, most pastors won't even bring up. And that is worldview. Now, if you're of the worldview that there are extreme idiots of opposing political views, and every day it's about finding the issue manifested again that we disagree on, and I go into my pep rally and we cheer us on and talk about how dumb they are, and they go into their pep rally and they talk about how smart they are and how dumb we are. I mean, if that's all you're in for is a fight, I suspect it's easy to find online, on radio, or on television. You're just not going to get it here. But if you're into belief, that's a different story. Take the Michigan State University shooting. I would imagine that there are some that were relieved to find out he was a 43-year-old black person and anything but, and far from a right-wing extremist. And that's just how the world of fighting and narratives works. The world of faith works. I don't really, living in Nashville, Tennessee, I'm not required, nor is it beneficial for me to overanalyze this. I will tell you my first reaction is this is about life and not guns. So my thoughts and prayers are with the wounded, that they heal. My thoughts and prayers are with the victims' family members who are dealing with loss. And the reason I'm praying that way is because I'm one person in Nashville, Tennessee, with great empathy and sympathy, but I can't help them. But an omnipresent God I believe in, an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God I believe in, can be near to their broken hearts, even far away. Not far from where I was born, but far from where I live. And I believe only that God can bottle these kinds of tears. Only that God can give peace that passes any human understanding at this time of grief. Now, that's a long-winded way of saying our thoughts and prayers are with these people. Why? Because the most important part of this story is a creator's creation, sacred, was taken senselessly. Because man is not inherently good, and evil does exist. And it walked into Michigan State University. Now, once you go beyond that, there are some things to discuss. And I get your curiosity. If this happened to be a white male, 56, wearing a MAGA hat, you know this would be a much differently treated story. That just speaks to the death of journalism. That just speaks to the social dilemma and the polarizing, dramatic divisions in America. For me, it kind of feels like a cheap shot, though it is a reality check. I'll grant you that. of all the things that I did that I found was interesting that isn't faith-related versus fighting, I'm reading the Fox account, and the shooting began at 8:18 p.m. inside Berkey Hall on the northern boundary of the campus. It prompted the school to send out a shelter-in-place at 8:31. I mean, the first thing I circled was shooting began at 8:18, and the shelter-in-place isn't issued until 8:31. Oh, my gosh, 13 minutes is an eternity in a live shooting situation. Don't count on Michigan State University to keep you alive. The alert was a run, hide, fight alert. The story goes on to say, run means evacuate away from danger if you can do so safely. Hide means to secure in place. And fight means protect yourself if there is no other option. Now it is kind of a worldview thing, isn't it? You see, our founding fathers felt you're right. I'm not trying to make this political, but just so people know the divisions and how they exist. The left will tell you, and I opened it up. By the way, it's very boring reading. But I opened up the Board of Trustees of Michigan State University's ordinances on firearms. 1801, 1802, 1803, 1804, 1805. 1801, except as permitted by state law regulating firearms, the campus is saying no firearms anyway on property, governed by the Board of Trustees. A person residing on the property governed by the Board of Trustees must store any and all firearms and weapons with the Department of Police and Public Safety. So certainly not on your person. 02 states that no person shall possess any chemical, biological, radioactive, or other dangerous substance or compound. 03 is the use of firearms or weapons is prohibited upon property governed by the Board of Trustees, except those areas specifically set aside and supervised. That's actually acknowledging, and then it further defines. These are shooting ranges. 04 just states that the ordinance doesn't apply to police officers or legally established law enforcement officers. And 05, the ordinance does not alter the terms of any university policies that regulate the use and possession of firearms. So basically, make a long story short, you're not allowed to have a firearm at Michigan State University. Now, that doesn't stop a person that plans on killing many and then himself. They just break the law to go break a greater law. This is the flaw in the leftist worldview. And once you submit yourself to that, now your founding fathers acknowledge a right that comes from God, an inalienable right. And that is your right to bear arms, to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect your property. The left is always trying to either disarm or disadvantage. But, I mean, don't you love this? Nowhere are you permitted to have a gun. And when a shooter is killing people on campus, they're issuing alerts to run, hide, or fight. Fight means protect yourself if there is no other option. Of course, they're a gunman with a gun. You're not allowed to have a gun. Wow, that looks like a disadvantaged, unfair fight, doesn't it? And this keeps happening story after story. I mean, I realize you dodged a bullet with this one, and it's not going to turn out to be a right-wing nut that you can blame this on and blame it on Trump and blame it on all conservatives and blame it on everybody that stands against taking away guns. But anybody that was in the fight mode on Michigan State University would have had to break the law and break the governance of the university in order to have fought fairly. That happens every story, too. There's one inconvenient truth in every one of these stories. The gun is the problem, and the gun is the solution, so it can't be the gun. California's got some issues. California's electric grid faces years of potential blackouts and failure as state leaders continue pushing aggressive measures to transition to renewable energy sources. I'll show you how this one breaks down in real life. Coming out of dinner with a friend. He's got a car I'm actually considering getting. He loves it. He's thinking about getting the electric version. And I go, too soon. He goes, yeah, I think so, but maybe in a couple years. Too soon. I mean, it's one thing to have these ambitions, but there is nobody outside of an extreme leftist agenda that sees solar capable of providing enough energy for a state like California, or wind for a state like California. And it may be politically so cool to hear by potential voters, but at what point, how many seasons of blackouts will they go through before they go, well, enough of this, let's get a real governor? The state's grid, which is mainly powered by fossil fuels, is undergoing a major shift from natural gas and coal power to renewable power like wind and solar. Simultaneously, state officials are pushing for an electrification of the economy, particularly in the transportation sector. They literally want to mandate all electric cars, not let the people decide based on price, based on efficiency. Like if you had something that was really better than gas, people would naturally buy it, but you don't, so you got to force it. And I don't think they're going to get this done by 2035. In fact, if you try to do that for the entire country by 2035, there's not enough vehicles. And a lot of grids would start going dark if everybody was charging at once. They're going in blackouts now. Can you imagine if everybody's plugging in cars? How long before somebody, plays the insanity card? This worldview, this political policy view, never mind how everybody's split onto their teams and fighting, it ain't working. How are you going to sell that at the national level to boot, especially if you get a DeSantis versus Gavin Newsom presidency? Good luck with that as well. It's 1021.
No matter the season, the reason you need to call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is to make sure you stay comfortable with your heating and AC running at peak efficiency for maximum comfort. Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am a proud member of the Beehive Club with Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. They come right out and check my HVAC unit at the beginning of the hot and cold seasons to make sure that it's ready for what's ahead. They'll also check out your plumbing systems as well, and right now you pay $99 a year and you get those maintenance checks plus no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off of all repairs. It does pay to become a Beehive member. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, they are your official Rude Pro partner. They've got plenty of HVAC units available if you need one. 615-775-7833. Be sure and tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. 615-775-7833. BusyBeeHVAC.com.
The check is good, the experience is smooth, and the reviews online are wonderful at GiveMeTheVin.com. They don't call us America's best car buyer for nothing.
Sell us your car. GiveMeTheVin.com. So easy you can do it in your underwear.
crashes still blocking the way. You got 40 eastbound at Jefferson Street here in Nashville. Then in Montgomery County, you got 24 eastbound at MLK Parkway. Rolling roadblocks in downtown Nashville. Right 2 lanes blocked, 24 westbound at Spring Street. And even Democrats are growing weary of a lack of answers to questions about those high-altitude objects shot down over the U.S. and Canada over the weekend. Hear from one of them coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We used to, and he doesn't work for ABC anymore, so we can't. But a long time ago, Ken, when we were an ABC affiliate, what was his name now? Bernstein? No, David something. Anyway, he was the entertainment reporter for ABC, and I used to do weekly hits with him. Blaustein, David Blaustein.
David Blaustein, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful guy. I don't think he's with ABC anymore.
No.
Anyway, so David and I were having a conversation one time because I got an idea for a great television show. And I still think it's a great idea. I'd still watch it. Now, I hate divorce. God hates divorce, but it happens in our culture. What if you took 2 people recently divorced and bring them back? Let's say that it was their first love back freshman year in high school. So now they're 50-something years old. They're both divorced. And you reunite them. And the name of the show is called First Love. And then they go back. Would they still have what they felt when they were younger? And then all the interesting life experiences apart. See what they look like all those years different.
That's interesting.
And see if they go on it. Right. So I thought, what a great idea for a show. So I called Blaustein. And I said, David, I got this great idea. Do you know anybody I could get in touch with? Never hear back on him. And suddenly I hear a show similar to this on another network. Apparently, he talked about it with some friend, and then they launched a show. The way they did it, it bombed. I still think it would work. But I have a new idea that I want to spring, but I'm afraid to say it out loud. So you're too young, but Ken remembers in the 70s, there was no better show than Superstars. Howard Cosell would be on the campus of Pepperdine University for the Superstars. And you'd have like an NBA player, a Major League Baseball player, an ABC sitcom star, and everybody would compete on teams for points. And they'd have rowing, they'd have swimming, and it all came down to the obstacle course. Well, then I look down today and I see headline. Remember I was telling you, nobody knows what the future was going to look like. We expected flying cars, but not sperm obstacle courses. Scientists are creating obstacle courses for sperm that can separate the stronger swimmers out. The highly motile sperm can help with in vitro fertilization. And by isolating the best swimmers, those undergoing IVF have better odds of conceiving. It's like $6,000 per cycle in some cases with only 20 to 35% success rate. Never mind that. I mean, I think that's just another way they're finding a way to string people along and make money. But what if we could take the sperm of top athletes and movie stars and television stars and have them compete in this obstacle course?
That's not bad, actually. That's pretty good.
Reproductive superstar. I still like First Love, but it'll never happen. Speaking of the future, they're going to have flying taxis in Dubai.
Whoa. Well, that ought to go over well.
Well, they better not get off course in America. Joe will shoot them down.
That's right.
Dubai has revealed new details for its plans to launch flying taxis by 2026. That's ambitious. It's 2023. One thing when we talk about being all electric by 3035, no one will remember he made such a prediction. That's only 3 years from now. They plan to have... I'd go to Dubai just to be in a flying taxi, just to see how you wave it down. Do you shoot a flare? I mean, what if something's flying? I mean, do you remember the first time you waved a taxi, like in New York City? It's very intimidating.
Taxi?
But no, I'll show you. I got the move. You just kind of lean over the curb and you go. You do this with your finger.
That's right.
And most of them ignore you, but then one will pull over real fast and you hop in before the older person that's a little lame. I don't know how you flag down a... Now, that'll be next. We'll have flying Ubers. Will people just get into a stranger and fly away?
Follow that car.
Follow that one. With this move, the futuristic city-state on the Arabian Peninsula is pushing forward its plan to introduce flying taxis, already known for being home to the world's tallest buildings and other architectural wonders. Maybe not only can you take your taxi, you can take it right to your 86th floor.
Just go right up, let you off in the balcony.
That's the future as we imagined it.
Wow.
10:30. All right, when we come back, we get back to serious stories. This has always been one of my favorite stories because I think finally the border states and their governors did the smartest thing they could do, and it has debunked their entire worldview. It has debunked their entire policy stance. And if you think it hasn't backfired as bad as it can backfire, stand by. This is the worst backfire ever. Oh, the failures of the left. For those of you like fighting over Bible, you're going to love this one. Your opposition is being proven an idiot. Next on WTN.
Still got some things in the way. 24 westbound at Spring Street, Ellington Parkway, rolling roadblocks. The right two lanes are blocked. And then in Montgomery County, you got that crash 24 eastbound at MLK Parkway. That's there in Clarksville. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Well, even Democrats are growing weary of a lack of answers to questions about high-altitude objects shot down over the U.S. and Canada over the weekend. Connecticut Democrat Richard Blumenthal after this morning's Senate briefing.
There is a lot of information presented to us this morning that could be told to the American people without any harm to sources or methods or our national security.
Says it needs to be shared with the American people. James Longman, covering the aftermath of the deadly earthquake in Turkey, says people are still being rescued.
3 rescues, 198 hours after this earthquake, and 2 men were saved from the rubble just today, and a 16-year-old girl, after 201 hours under the rubble, she was saved. So there are yet some glimmers of hope.
More than 37,000 people now confirmed dead. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
What was the Garth Brooks song about, thanking God for unanswered prayers?
That's it, unanswered prayers.
Oh, it was called Unanswered Prayers?
Yeah, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers.
Unanswered prayers. Well, I guess I just got one because earlier in the show we prayed that somehow the Holy Spirit would move on either Chaz Corzine or Olympic gold medalist Scott Hamilton to give me tickets for the Preds and Bruins because I don't have any money left from buying cars. And I was just talking about superstars, and I get a text from Scott Hamilton. Dick Button created superstars.
Ah.
So apparently the Holy Spirit got to him, but forgot to tell him I wanted tickets to the Preds game.
Yeah.
And just had him go. I did not know Dick Buttons. Started
Button.
there. By the way, don't remember Dick Button was the Scott to this day says he was one of, for his time. You got to take everything. We got guys doing quints now, not even quads, quints. But for his time, that Dick Button was one of the most impressive figure skaters that changed figure skating forever. And then for all the years commentating. But we had Battle of the Network Stars and Superstars, and I guess they were different. Battle of the Network Stars was ABC versus NBC versus CBS, right? Sitcoms and drama stars. And Superstars were athletes from different sports.
When we were kids.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't remember them separately. So Dick started Superstars. Battle of the Network Stars was just stolen from his concept, as my first love concept was stolen.
Dick Button's still alive, 93 years
93
old.
years old, yeah. Woodward and Bernstein, Carl Bernstein, 78 today. Penn and Teller's Teller, 74. And Meg Tilly, 62. And happy birthday if it's your birthday. 10:34, back to the hard news. Probably my second and third favorite story of the day. Next on WTM. 10:38. 22 minutes. Lower that music down in there, Mac, or you're grounded, young man. Does any of that sound familiar?
What do you want to do with your life?
I just realized, Ken, we're old enough to be his father.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
Would that be uncomfortable to have you call me Dad?
Yeah, a little bit.
Just say it one time. I want to see what it's like. I want to see what it's like to have an obedient, handsome, talented son. Hey, Daddy. Daddy. I'm going to HR. You can't make me call you Daddy.
Oh.
That was a sick thought, wasn't it? Fair and 59. I'm so jealous of your Super Bowl. Now I'm wanting to be your father.
And come join the dark side, Mike.
You know, you can say a lot of things about the New Orleans Saints, but at least we don't cheat.
Ugh.
Oh, wait a minute. We did, didn't we? We were.
Yeah,
we had
we
had Bountygate.
That's right.
We were bumping off quarterbacks.
You're busting kneecaps.
I stand by that defensive coordinator. I still think he was the best. Fair and 59 in the Puffy Muffin in Brentwood. Fair and 58 to the north in Hendersonville. It is 58 downtown and feels like 56 at Super Talk 99.7 WTM. Market, I got a feeling it's going to be a real kick in the shins before it's over. Now the Dow is now down. It was up 126. The Dow is now down 384. NASDAQ's now down 95, and the S&P's down 36. I will have no retirement if you keep these idiots in office. All right. So I think this is like a top 3 story of the day. So we used to say a long time ago, behind every headline is a story, and then behind every story there's so much to talk about. We don't do that so much anymore because really, death of journalism, we don't really have news, and we don't really have news consumers. We have narratives and agendas, and then on social media, we have narrative repeaters. So it's, yeah. But in this case, this is a Metro story from the New York Post. This really is news. This really is a headline. And behind the headline, there really is so much to talk about. So I'm sifting through. My favorite story in the Tennessean today, by the way, Williamson County, #1 in the state, ladies and gentlemen. I take a bow. That's based on all key factors. Safety, affordable housing, schools, you name it. And I think we ranked 27th in the country. You know how many counties there are in the country? We're the 27th best county ranked in the country to live in. And then this was my favorite national story. So Quebec, Canada, tells New York City Mayor Eric Adams, stop buying migrants bus tickets. So this is a nightmare for the left, right? Remember what the narrative used to be? Don't send bus tickets to Martha's Vineyard. Don't send them to New York. We want open borders, but we want all the crime. We want all the chaos. We want all the unfairness. We want all the expense to just be on the border red states. Don't send them to ours until governors finally got smart and started sending them. So if you want to have a national policy of open borders, maybe if you start sharing in the consequence, you might be more reasonable about being a sovereign nation and securing our border for national financial security, for national security. Enemies, terrorists can come through those borders. Drug lords come through those. Human traffickers come through those. Criminals come through those. It's an inhumane journey to them if you really care. And we have legal ways to enter this country. So we just lived for decades. I mean, we've lived for 50 years now. Just got resurfaced in a Supreme Court ruling with this notion it's a woman's body, even though it's not her DNA, even though she doesn't have 4 arms and 4 legs, and in some cases, a male genitalia. Well, it's just a part of her body. So we turn a blind eye to abortion. And nobody ever even explores when life begins. Nobody even talks about the insanity of some of the slogans we've endured. Abortion should be safe. Well, it's not completely safe for the mother. There are proclivities involved and risks. The baby always dies. What's safe about that? Rare. If there's nothing wrong with it, why should it be rare? And legal. It's just a ridiculous chant. So the left, and it was never worse than the 2020 campaign. I mean, you had Mama La Kamala telling everybody that Donald Trump is committing crimes against humanity because he's securing his sovereign nation's border. And then getting specific, keeping people on the Mexican side, separating children from their families, putting kids in cages, and then they all got caught doing the same thing. So the smartest thing I have witnessed in all my years of talk radio were some border state governors who started putting these people on buses. It took hours for Martha's Vineyard to freak out. Well, don't send them to our elite resort. Then you got a New York City mayor who's like all over Joe Biden. You better rethink your border policies. You better secure that damn border. My city's at a breaking point. Funny how their worldview changed when the consequence arrived. But what was the biggest criticism? How dare they use these human beings as political pawns? How dare they bus them to other states? And what do you catch the New York mayor doing? Busing them to a different country. And what does the country say? Stop buying New York migrants bus tickets to our city. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? The government of Canada's second most populated province is demanding that the mayor, Eric Adams of New York City, immediately stop helping migrants illegally enter the Great White North. Any form of assistance to migrants crossing the border where it is strictly forbidden to do so should stop immediately. We understand that the situation of migrants in New York poses major challenges, but the situation in Quebec and particularly in Montreal is even worse and constitutes an important humanitarian issue. Earlier this month, the New York Post exclusively reported that Adams was using taxpayer funds to buy bus tickets for migrants in the Big Apple to travel upstate to Plattsburgh. From there, the migrants take taxis and vans to Champlain, where they walk across the border and surrender to Canadian Mounties. As many as 250 migrants used the Roxham Road crossing to illegally enter Canada. Last year, 39,161 people used that road to illegally enter Canada. Just keeps kind of passing the hot potato, doesn't it? So a failed policy view, a failed worldview, a fraudulent worldview. I guess the next song I'll sing is True Colors Shining Through. I mean, this is classic. Have you ever seen a political move in political chess pay more dividends than we're seeing with this? And it just gets worse and worse for the left. I wonder, and I doubt it, but in 2024, the next presidential election, can we have a more serious conversation about a sovereign nation and its right and duty to secure its borders for law and order? Apparently, everything's hunky-dory if people are breaking into your house. The minute they break into our house, it's a real problem, and we send them to a house in another country or another state. I mean, how brilliant was Governor Abbott and others to start sending these illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, to New York? I'd send them to Camp David, the White House, if for no other reason to see where they send them next, as they're telling you it's immoral to send them around. So now you've got a New York City mayor who thinks the president's an idiot because he's not doing his job in securing the border, and now he's caught shipping them outside the country. I mean, I don't care if you're on the extreme left. I don't care if you're on the extreme right. This is just stupidity playing out, isn't it? And I think it could have a game-changing shift in how this issue is finally viewed. And the game-changing shift is reality, truth, lawful, not political, not narrative, not agenda. All just by putting them in a bus. Now, the next one, which is our second favorite story of the day, I'll give you this much in tease. The headline is face masks made little to no difference. Not when it comes to the preventing the spread of COVID. So for all those fights we were seeing on the streets and in restaurants. Now, in real time, when it was happening, I'm just looking at masks in general. You mask the sick, not the healthy. You shelter in place the sick, not the healthy. I mean, we were doing a lot of things that were very strange, certainly not medical. When it came to masks, of course, it depends on the type of mask. And is it fitted properly? Is it worn too long? Is it handled properly, disposed of properly? Because you could make yourself a lot sicker. But then to have it come back where statistically, now, but what are we seeing in real time? Never mind narrative and agenda. I wasn't playing narrative and agenda 2 years ago. I'm certainly not playing it or changing my tune. Don't anybody accuse me of hindsight is 2020 and armchair quarterbacking. I was saying this in real time. And if you want to know why I'm loyal to my general manager and operations manager, because they protected my job at a time where that wasn't a certainty. Partially because of how I handled it. But those were scary times to speak the truth 2 years, 2.5 years ago. But now we know. Now it's a fact, Jack. It was a fact before if you stayed out of narrative and agenda and just stayed in the realm of science and understanding. How many years were you sick in the hospital and the nurses came in wearing a mask and you didn't wear one? But a certain type of mask, fitted a certain way, handled properly, disposed of properly, not worn too long. So just common sense started driving me. What's this deal with masks? Now, maybe I was where they are now, 2.5 years later, 2.5 years ago, but never mind who was right, who was wrong. Now we know it made little to no difference. That's now a fact. Now everyone has the benefit of hindsight. And aren't you still walking in places that have mask mandates? Let's see how that holds up to our new story. By the way, research-based scientific review. Next on WTN, it's 10:50.
Hear from one of the U.S. senators who just got a briefing on the 3 flying objects shot down over the U.S. and Canada airspace over the weekend. That's coming up at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, and our audience got a briefing from James Carafano an hour ago.
Yeah.
They're just, firming up their targets. Nothing to worry about there. All right, so I love this story. It's my favorite story of the day, and I don't know how much I can get done in 4 minutes, but follow the bouncing ball. The headline really does say it all. Face masks made little to no difference in preventing the spread of COVID. This is a scientific review. Now, the CDC, which I said initially 2 years ago, but if you walk into a medical facility today, odds are they're going to make you put on a mask. I don't know what that does for the credibility. Do you really want to keep going to a doctor that still has you putting on a mask, knowing this? What else don't they know? What else are they unwilling to see? I said the CDC is going to have to be dismantled and replaced for anybody to trust it. So the story's quick to tell you. After initially claiming face coverings weren't necessary, suddenly the CDC changes course in April of 2020, calling on all Americans, even children as young as 2 years old, to mask up. Dealing with COVID can't even fathom how you could arrive at that. I mean, unless it was a very special 2-year-old on a heart machine or, dangling in the balance of life. But they weren't even consistent throughout. I was saying, even 3 years ago, if you're sick, there's some benefit in you wearing a mask. But this social distancing, everyone masking, everyone sheltering in place, none of this makes any medical sense. But let's just stick to the topic of masks here. I'll never forget the kid in Little League. 105-degree day at shortstop with no one within 15 yards of him, playing a doubleheader with a mask on. What do you think was more dangerous for that 12-year-old that day? Wearing that mask in that heat? Or maybe getting COVID, which wasn't likely to even be symptomatic for a healthy 12, 13-year-old anyway. So initially, masks aren't necessary. Then suddenly, got to wear a mask, everybody, all the way to 2 years old. That September, the CDC director, Robert Redfield, said during a Senate hearing that face masks are the most important, powerful health tool we have. I mean, what credibility? This is the first and foremost thing I would say to you. Whether you were getting it 3 years ago, are you getting it now? What credibility does the CDC? Were they really in the disease business? Or were they up to something else? That their director was this wrong about masks. Face masks are the most important, powerful tool we have. In hindsight, he was only completely wrong. Well, those recommendations likely played a large part in 39 U.S. states eventually enacting mask mandates. So now everybody has to mask. And if you don't mask, you're fired. If you don't mask, you can't eat here. If you don't mask, you can't shop here. And that's even after they let you out of your house. Now a new scientific review suggests that widespread masking may have done little to nothing to curb the transmission of COVID-19. Now, that's a fact. And yet you still have mask mandates being issued in doctors' offices, in medical facilities. The review, titled Physical Interventions to Interrupt or Reduce the Spread of Respiratory Viruses, was led by 12 researchers from esteemed universities from around the world. Published, the review dug into the findings of 78 randomized controlled trials to determine whether physical interventions, including face masks and hand washing, lessened the spread of the respiratory virus. When comparing the use of medical surgical masks to wearing no mask, by the way, don't even get me started on gaiters, wrong materials, fitted improperly, handled improperly, not disposed of properly. Wait till you hear the results. And you can make your own mind up, not based on narrative, based on medical fact. Next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
11 o'clock on the dot this Tuesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, still tracking the potential for some severe weather this week. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Flying objects update. Connecticut Democrat U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal says based on the briefing the Senate received this morning, those objects shot down over the U.S. and Canada airspace did not pose a threat to national security. So there is no reason to withhold information from the American people any longer.
There is a lot of information presented to us this morning that could be told to the American people without any harm to sources or methods or our national security.
Right now in Michigan, Aaron Katursky updates the mass murder last night on the campus of Michigan State University.
Police in Ewing, New Jersey said they were told Michigan State gunman Anthony McRae had a note in his pocket that indicated a threat to 2 Ewing public schools. McRae had a history of mental health issues, police said, and local ties to Ewing. Police in Ewing shut the schools for the day, even though investigators determined the shooting was isolated to Michigan and posed no local threat.
And a new report shows inflation slowed down year over year, but not month to month in January.
Inflation has now been cooling for 7 straight months. The January Consumer Price Index rose 6.4% compared to a year ago. That's just a tick lower than the rate in December after inflation hit that historically high level of 9% last summer.
Elizabeth Schulze says you are still paying about $400 more for everyday goods than a year ago. And Tennessee lawmakers are debating getting the state closer to true constitutional carry for firearms. News Channel 5 says Tennessee Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton told reporters,
I think what you'll see come out of the House is a true constitutional carry bill that goes to 18. That does include firearms, changing handguns to firearms.
Yeah, that would mean shotguns and rifles, too. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I'm Michael DelGiorno for Paul Winkler Inc. One of the things I love about Paul and his team is that they voluntarily hold themselves to the highest level of fiduciary duty out there. And because of that, the government requires that I tell you I'm paid every time this commercial airs, and that there's an incentive for me to say good things about Paul and his team. It's funny other industries don't require that, but hey, I don't make the rules. I'm actually a client of Paul's, and I can tell you that he brings an understanding of the investing world I haven't seen anywhere else in all my years. He helps me understand what I'm doing and why, so I don't worry about investing or second guess my decisions. There's nothing more unnerving than getting close to retirement age and wondering, have you saved enough to keep from having to go back to work? Or worse, move in with your kids? Paul and his team have the most sophisticated tools I've ever seen for testing your financial plan and helping you sidestep the risks of running out or outliving your investments. And best of all, every office is run by a degreed planner. Set up a free 15-minute phone call today. 10 offices in Middle Tennessee, one phone number. Call 851-1950, 851-1950, or online at paulwinkler.com. At 11:06, we have fair skies in Franklin, 60 degrees. Mount Juliet, you're partly cloudy and 62. Down in the boroughs, sunshine, you're the warm spot at 64 degrees. And downtown on Music Row, statues are naked, skies are partly cloudy, 61 degrees, feels like 60 in Nashville at WTN. The Dow down 323 at 33,922. NASDAQ down 71 at 11,820. And the S&P's down 30 at 4106. All three are in the red. The market is down. $11:07 at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. If I haven't acknowledged it enough, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. I love you. Thank you for listening to us. When comparing the use of medical surgical masks to wearing no mask, a comprehensive review done by some of the top medical researchers at the top universities concluded. The review found that wearing a mask may have little to no difference in how many people caught the flu-like illness, COVID-19. 9 studies, talk about a sample size, 276,917 people, probably makes little or no difference in how many people have flu-like COVID confirmed by laboratory tests in 6 studies. That one with 13,919. Next, the review compared medical surgical masks to N95 respirators. It found that wearing an N95 probably makes little to no difference in how many people have confirmed flu. That was 5 studies with 8,400 people, and may have little to no difference in how many people caught flu-like illness in 5 studies with 8,400 people, or respiratory illnesses in 3 studies with 7,799. I mean, not to be buried in this story is not just COVID. So for those that are thinking, well, all right, masks are just a part of our protocol now. So if there's a stomach virus going around, if there's a flu virus going around, or if there's a new variant of COVID, I'm just going to mask up. Well, basically, you're just making yourself feel better. There's no scientific study. Little to no is the achievement. Little to no difference. Data was gathered during the H1N1 flu pandemic in 2009, non-epidemic flu seasons, epidemic flu seasons up to 2016, and yes, the COVID-19 pandemic. The new findings seem to call into question the CDC's enthusiastic embrace of widespread masking, which is now not even needing, we're just so much about COVID was about control. They wanted you good and scared because when you're scared, you're controllable. And so in looking back, you had Johns Hopkins said from day one, and it proved to be all the way to the end. And it is the proof that is in every Pfizer commercial today, finally. Unless you're obese, unless you're diabetic, unless you have lung or heart issues, unless you're a smoker, this is cold-like. But if you are with those pre-existing conditions and the elderly, you need to take precautions. But that isn't what they did during COVID. During COVID, you're going to get it, and if you get it, you're going to die. They hyped the hysteria, the crawlers with all the deaths. All remarkably tainted numbers. People die every day. Every one of you listening to the sound of my voice, this is not a breaking news story. We're all going to die. This physical body will die. What we saw during COVID is anybody that died of brain cancer, heart attack, what have you, if they had COVID, it was considered a COVID death. That was a reimbursement incentive. But it added to that ticker that made everybody think they could die. They could die. They were scared. They panicked. And then they became controllable. And they're still controllable. It will still be many people's natural instincts to wear a mask. I guarantee you're passing people every day that are not obese, that are not smokers, that don't have lung and heart issues, that are not elderly, and they're still wearing masks. And it makes no sense. A, because it isn't likely that COVID would kill them. At this point, 99.8% likely it wouldn't kill them. And then worse, the mask isn't working. But they'll still wear them. And I'll bet you medical communities will still require. Even though these studies are proving, not 3 years ago, today. Now, the CDC couldn't seem to make up its mind. At first, they told you don't need a mask. Then they told you got to wear a mask. Then they finally tell you it is the number one thing you can do to protect yourself. And here are 78 studies looking at participants in all countries. It did nothing, little to nothing, to stop the spread. And yet it's still becoming a way of life. As control, hysteria to control and being controlled is becoming a way of life. Talk about a bombshell. 2 bombshell headlines. 2 months ago, Republicans were inhumane, heartless people to use real human beings, immigrants, migrants, as political pawns and bust them to other places. But then when they got there, nobody wanted him. Not in Martha's Vineyard. Then the mayor didn't want him in New York City. Said he was being overrun by them. He even told his Democrat president, you better fix the border. My city's about to collapse over it. And then now what did he get caught doing? He's sending them on buses to Quebec. Now you got Canada saying stop it. Issue blows up in their face. Now, as I made the point earlier, it's not about being right. But as it turns out, I didn't follow narratives. I didn't follow agendas. I just followed logic, which led to me, not all masks are the same. I mean, I can tell you protocol was you mask the sick, not the healthy. Protocol was you isolate the sick, not the healthy. I mean, at some point, is anybody going to admit things went really crazy? We shut every business, every school, locked everybody up in their house. You got a teen crisis now. I'm going to give you some real medical issues with teen girls right now. Right now, we're disproving that masks did anything, that shelter in place did anything. Soon, you'll start studying what it did do. But, I mean, this is a moment of reality, right? Here's this very prestigious, high-sampled, worldwide, from prestigious universities, study of science, and face masks made little to no difference. Do you think there's a portion of America that can even accept that as true? Don't you think there's a portion of America that'll still turn to a mask every time they think there's a threat? perhaps there's something more afoot, more dangerous than this virus was ever even hyped to be. And the inability to change. Wow. That could be a bad one. I was always creeped out by Barney. There was just something creepy. I'm glad it didn't happen in my childhood, but then as an adult looking at Barney, I mean, everybody was creeped by Pee Wee Herman. I thought Pee Wee Herman was genius. Barney, creepy. Well, Barney's back with a brand new look, but not everyone is feeling the digital makeover. According to TMZ, Mattel Television made the major announcement Monday, revealing that the throwback show Barney and Friends is making a comeback. The company also showed off a brand new Barney for the reimagined franchise, but the new improved Barney was not a fan favorite with the majority of the folks on social media. The Barney reboot is set to officially debut in 2024. Of all the things I don't want to go back to, Barney is certainly one of them. And here's some good news for everyone in entertainment. Ted Lasso, March 15th, the new season.
Woo!
You know, I always say this, but once football's over, and I don't move on until it is. Like, I don't start watching college basketball till after the Super Bowl. But I just naturally, like this month, start enjoying basketball, and then you hit March Madness. And March Madness is just the greatest.
The best.
And then it ends, and you go right into the Masters, and it's the greatest. It's just the circle of life, right? So, but now here's another reason to love March. Finally, a new Ted Lasso. Now, I think we're going to get sometime late spring, summer, the next morning show. So that's big wave for Apple. With Ted Lasso next season, March 15th, and another season of a morning show finally coming out. And I think towards the end of the year, we're going to get another Righteous Gemstones, which could wrap up the year great. I mentioned the third most watched Super Bowl ever. Did you peek on this issue? Are you aware of what 1 and 2 is?
No.
Try to get, of all the Super Bowls.
Wow.
I was shocked. 113 million people watched the Chiefs and the Eagles in Super Bowl 57 this weekend. That was third most watched in history. Second most watched, Seattle and Denver.
Wow, that one was a blowout.
And almost identical, 112 million and 191,000. That was on Fox. Number 1 most watched ever, 114 million. New England and Seattle, and I think that was also in Arizona.
It was, and that was an amazing game.
That was you hand the ball to beast mode.
And you win.
You win.
You
and
win.
They don't. They throw, pick off, Patriots win. But yeah, that's your top 3 ranked Super Bowls of all time. But you're third on the list.
Hey, I'll take it.
Another thing for the cheats to brag about. All right, when we come back, we got to talk politics. I think Real Clear Politics came to the same conclusion that we collectively came to yesterday about what the Democrats can do and should do, especially when it comes to Kamala Harris. That's next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A moment of silence for Philadelphia Eagle fans. Yes, you caught me. That's all right. I finally made a mistake. Enjoy it. It won't happen
rare.
again.
It's very rare.
If you are frustrated with sick care that gives no answers and no relief, meaning it doesn't work. Oh, you call it health care, but it's sick care. And the no answers and no relief is unacceptable. I want to recommend Blue Umbrella Medical Center of Middle Tennessee. First thing I'll tell you straight up, Dr. Jay Hitson and her team of talented physicians, including MDs, are different. State-of-the-art lab testing. We're going to get to real answers. You deserve real answers. You're coming for real answers. Advanced diagnostic equipment. That helps us get to the root cause of your problem because that's what we're going to treat, the root cause, with cutting-edge regenerative treatments. And it actually brings lasting relief. Neuropathy is a great example, acute, chronic, and crippling. We use these state-of-the-art, cutting-edge regenerative treatments to treat the root cause, and it stimulates, reactivates, and regenerates the damaged tissue and nerve endings. That brings relief. and lasting relief. And it's covered by insurance and begins with a free consultation. So if you or someone you love or care for is suffering from neuropathy, you deserve the innovative integrative health solutions of Blue Umbrella. Actual health care with real results. Set up your free consultation today. 610-6937. 610-6937. Online at blueumbrellamedical.com.
Pentagon officials giving a few comments on those flying objects. We'll tell you about it coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, it's official, everybody. Nikki Haley is running for president.
Ah, yes, sir.
Time for a new generation of leadership.
Never heard that before.
You know what new generation means? None of those old farts. That's a little dig. You know, that's the interesting thing about Nikki Haley. It's a great resume. It's a great traditional trajectory. Somebody needs to say that out loud. Former governor of South Carolina. A lot of people are starting to feel better and better about governors again because they're executives.
They govern.
They govern. They execute. As opposed to members of the House that are usually, you know, fighters and arguers and rule through group. A governor knows that some things come to your desk that only you can decide, and it's more of a leadership, and taking into account multiple counties is how you take into account multiple states. So I think a governor, other than John F. Kennedy was the first non-governor, I believe. Since then we have had Biden comes out of the legislature, never been a governor.
Yep.
Bush was a governor. Oh, Obama. So Obama, 3. But, I mean, some might say as of late, and then Donald Trump, nothing. Might say it might be time to go back to tradition. So that's a real strength for her that she's a former governor, a UN ambassador for foreign policy. The trickiest part about this is that Nikki Haley once said, and Brett Baer held her accountable for this, that she would not run if Donald Trump was running. Well, Donald Trump is running, and now Nikki Haley has announced she's running. And she said in her interview, because it's time for a new generation, and then that's the slogan, a new generation of leadership. But I have often sensed that maybe this is about her eventually being his running mate. I don't know why. Everything in my gut says they're in this together. But let's see how it plays out. The video message was posted on Twitter. She touted her record as a governor and looking to the future of this country. She says it's time for a new generation of leadership. So Nikki Haley is in. Donald Trump is in. Everyone believes. I don't even think I'm going blank on his name now. Oh, my gosh. Chaz Corzine's going to be so mad. Not Paleo. Why am I wanting to say Paleo?
Mike Pompeo.
Pompeo. I don't know that Pompeo's made it official yet either, but
Not
everybody
yet.
presumes he will run. DeSantis hasn't made it official, but everybody presumes he runs. Make no mistake about it, Trump and Nikki Haley are in. Now, what we're still waiting on, of course, is the president. And yesterday we went over several scenarios. It was interesting because I was reading something, and I don't know what I did with it, or I would quote it for you. But it was actually going through the research numbers of all of the top players. And it hasn't changed at all for the Democrats. So the biggest thing in the scenario was that 41% have not made their mind up or aren't interested in any potential candidates that are being rumored. That's a big question mark for Democrats. Then you start looking at, Pete Buttigieg, 3%, I think it was, vice president. Everybody was in single digits. Everybody was in single digits. And Kamala was in single digits. Pete was in single digits. I mean, they just really don't have. So it leaves this big void and question mark. And what we determined yesterday was there's almost more certainty in Joe Biden than the uncertainty of the best of the non-Biden larger piece of the pie. Now, the next question becomes, what becomes of Kamala if Joe Biden steps aside or if she goes rogue and tries to run? Politico did a story. It said normally voters don't care much about the vice presidential nominee, even when they aren't wild about the choices, as we learned in 1988 when H.W. Bush chose Dan Quayle. That's a famous one for the right. McCain's choice of Sarah Palin was another big example. Voters are not blind to the quandary inside the White House. In fact, for Kamala, from her word salads to unfriendliness to weird cackle, this is a very unpopular vice president. So unpopular, they begin to allude to, is it possible somebody ought to consider dumping her? Now, imagine if you want to add that to the dilemmas of the left. They can't even figure out. Now, basically yesterday what we surmised, just as a point of review from looking at the research, that the Democrat leadership, all indications are, want Biden to run again. Now, I don't care when people say leadership with quotes around it. It really just matters what John Podesta is thinking. That's the administrative state that's really running the country. And I think I understand now how you might stick with Joe Biden. That may be your best play. The problem is Democrat voters right now, their hearts and minds can be changed, especially by who they're running against, especially if it's Donald Trump. But right now, the Democrat voters and Democrat-leaning independents overwhelmingly don't want Biden, and yet the grass tops money and maybe the people behind the administrative state really want Biden. So the party's leadership is at odds with its voters. And I will say this is the most compelling piece of evidence. It's February 14th, and Joe Biden still hasn't announced. So it's still up in the air. The last interview on it, he was dead set he was running. It was just a matter of the right timing. Well, everyone assumed the timing was after the midterm. Then they assumed it was after the new year. Then everybody assumed it was to launch with the State of the Union, and it still hasn't happened. It's a big question mark. As for the Republicans, Trump's in. I understand half the Republican voters aren't interested in Donald Trump, but there's a good portion that are very interested. So he's a leading candidate. Now Nikki Haley's in. We'll continue to watch as the lineups take shape, as they say. It's 11:30 and the news starts now.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top story, still tracking the potential for severe weather. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 2 minutes. Pentagon officials aren't giving many details, but are saying that recovery efforts will take some time for not only the Chinese spy balloon, but the 3 other objects that were shot out of the skies over U.S. and Canada airspace this weekend.
Number one, we are recovering and getting a lot of stuff off that, but 2, 3, and 4 not yet recovered. They're in very difficult terrain.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Mark Milley, says the first missile missed that object over Lake Huron, but the airspace was clear and didn't hit anything else. Today's inflation report shows it continues to cool year over year, but not month to month. Elizabeth Schulze says either way, prices are still high.
Today's report makes clear that Americans are feeling the impact in prices of daily essentials, including food, rent, utilities, and clothing. Overall, you're paying almost $400 more every month to buy the same goods and services as you were a year ago.
And that's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
All right, currently at 11:34, we have partly cloudy skies, 62 degrees at the Puffy Muffin in Brentwood. It is 62 to the north in Hendersonville. Downtown on Music Row, partly cloudy, 63. It feels like 62 in Nashville at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Market's been really bad all day based on inflation news. Trying to get the thing to load. Dow is now down 234 at 34,011. NASDAQ down 27. S&P down 18. That's some improvement from last half hour. All three are in the red, but led by the Dow, the market is still leaning down. I'm Michael DelGiorno, and if you want to look better, feel better about yourself, PAI Medical can help you grow your hair back this year. We have the finest surgeons, latest technology and results. We have surgical solutions and non-surgical solutions. And to find out what's best for you, if you're just curious or ready to get your hair back, the consultation is private, absolutely free, and no obligation. At We Grow Hair, PAI Medical in Brentwood, we have the only procedure in the state of Tennessee, PAI's multi-unit hair graft procedure. It's trademarked. It gives you more hair in one procedure. That saves you a massive amount of time and money, and no one else has it, and backed by the company I trust. So your looks are just simply too important to go anywhere else. Find out why thousands of men and women have chosen We Grow Hair to restore their hair. Call today and set up your free private consultation at 376-6010. That's 376-6010. 376-6010. Or check out the before and afters or get more information online at WeGrowHair.com. Information fueled, opinion driven. That's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I did some digging and found that story that I was trying to bring to life to you with pure memory, and it'll be a lot easier now that I found it. And it was an AP story. Who should lead? Republicans and Democrats struggle to decide. And I want to just skip past all of the narrative and get right to the research. So this was about 1,068 U.S. adults conducted January 26th through the 30th last month. So this is very, very recent information. It's interesting. A lot of these names haven't changed at all. Now, again, the question is who should lead? We always conflate that with be president. So let me first and foremost say, we the people should be leading. That was your founding fathers' intent. And the most powerful branch of government was to be the people's house, the House of Representatives. We're only getting it completely backwards. We no longer have God, so now we have the Supreme Court. They're more of a God to tell us what is right and wrong in a culture that doesn't believe in right and wrong. And we've made presidents, celebrities, personalities, and kings. But when you say who should lead, these are the names that they tested. Nancy Pelosi, 2%. Nancy's days are over. Chuck Schumer, 3%. Barack Obama, even though he's gone, he's still testing at 3%. Above Nancy Pelosi and right there with Chucky Schumer. And this should be very concerning for the Democrats. And right there with Kamala Harris, still at 3%. Pete Buttigieg, also at 3%. So if, let's say, Joe goes, where are you going with Kamala, the vice president, at 3%? Where are you going with Mayor Pete at 3%? By the way, Pete not looking very wise today for two stories that we can still do. One is he waited on the Michigan State shooting, 12 hours later, ignored a train derailment for 10 days. 12 hours, man. He's commenting on the shooting in Michigan at Michigan State University. 10 days later, so nothing on the train derailment. I don't think this guy understands what his job is. Meanwhile, on his job, his big foot and mouth this week was he tells a crowd white construction workers are taking jobs from communities of color. So he's bragging about how we're going to bring money, we're going to bring in infrastructure, but then when they show up and they're all white people in hats, that ain't good for communities of color. These people cannot stop playing identity politics of division. And they're not going to stop. We did when was that? Last week sometime. Just to give a quick review, I was talking about we all are where we are in life because of the choices we make. You've chosen yourself right to this place. Little decisions, big decisions, you're right where you chose to be. One good or bad decision at a time. Now, sometimes It's your choice to react to a circumstance or your choice in how you respond to a circumstance out of your control, but it's still choice. And what's driving our choices? Our values and the order our values are in. I can change you completely by changing your order of values. If your number one value is your career and I change it to your faith, you're going to be a different person. If your first was career and your second is, I don't know what I could make it, your political party, and I change that second one to being a husband and father, you're a different person. Collectively as a nation, we used to be faith, family, country. But we've abandoned faith. We've abandoned Judeo-Christian beliefs. We've attacked them, mocked them. We've abandoned absolute right and wrong. Now nobody knows who to decide what is right and wrong. It used to be our faith that informed what was right and wrong, our scripture that informed what was right and wrong, our parents. Then we used to be family next, but then the breakdown of the family, then even the need for family. It's almost offensive if you should suggest to a woman she needs a man. It's almost offensive to assume that anyone is a man or a woman. All these identities have been destroyed. How can you be faith, family, and country when you've dismantled faith, you've dismantled family and the need for family? Now, I guess like Hillary, it's just a village, a mob rule. It's a democracy. That's all you hear, democracy, democracy, democracy. So we did my list on the air just as a lesson, and I started with child of God, because I'm first and foremost a child of my Heavenly Father. Then I'm a follower of Christ. Then I'm an ambassador for Christ. Then I'm a husband. Then I'm a father. My parents are still alive, so then I'm a son. I have brothers, now then I'm a brother. I have nieces and nephews, so then I'm an aunt, then I'm an uncle. Then you get to, I guess I'm a radio host, I guess I was an author, I guess I've done stand-up comedy, whatever all that is. And then somewhere down that list, I would have American, long before I'd put Republican or Democrat or Independent. I'd just say American. And what I said was nowhere on my list is I'm Caucasian. I never think about it. And there's a good portion of my audience that's going, of course you don't. It's because you're privileged. I want you to know something. I don't feel guilty for being white. And I don't feel advantaged for being white. I do feel advantaged being a child of the King. I do feel advantaged being an ambassador for Christ. And all things have worked together for the good. And he has gone before me and beside me and with me. I've never had anybody walk up to me and just because I was white, give me something. Oh, you have? You're just not naturalist. Well, I think somewhere along the line, even if we disagree on whether that's true or not, what we can't disagree on is maybe I see it that way because of my values and my rules for values. So I wasn't looking at my skin color or other people's skin color. I was being a child of God, an ambassador to Christ, a husband, a father. But somewhere on your list, maybe you have an accident. I don't know what you think. We're all an accident from an explosion in space. Then we're all evolved from apes. There is no right. There is no wrong. So all that, just there is no beliefs whatsoever. I mean, maybe first on your list is race. Maybe that's all you see is race. Maybe that's what happened when we abandoned God for anything goes. For some people, race goes right to the top. That's all they see. That's all they think about. I'm beginning to think that's the way it is with Mayor Pete. That's all he cares about is his gender, he's gay, and race, and using that to gain power. Because he's even made new construction about skin color. During a National Association of Counties conference, Buttigieg urged those in attendance to work with their contractors and community colleges to build a workforce that reflects the community. Now, in doing that, he's saying it's not there. But he just got through saying, the problem is I bring in all this money, we do all this construction, and then a bunch of white people in helmets show up to do the work, not you, the people of color in your community. As if there's something racist. And then in the next line, he's making it clear why that is. You're not doing that work. First of all, it's not true. There's a lot of Hispanic construction workers. There's black construction workers. But clearly when he says during the speech that you got to get these people to have contractors and community colleges build a workforce that reflects the community. I mean, half of it is that's all he sees is race, not quality workers, not opportunity. We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that's finally seeing a project come their way, but everyone in the hard hats on that project, getting the good paying jobs, don't look anything like the people who live in that neighborhood. It's always race with these people. And how well is it paying off for them? Well, for Pete, 3% see him as a party leader. I think out of all of these that are surprising, that Barack Obama has fallen to 3%. All these other numbers look just like they did 4 years ago. Mayor Pete's at 3% 4 years later. He's done nothing to advance himself. If Joe Biden were to die or step aside, he's not a legitimate player to run for president. Bernie Sanders is the next level up at 5%, and so is AOC. I got news for you. That party is so crazy. AOC's in play. I wonder, and I doubt She's it, of but in constitutional 2024, age. the next presidential election, can we have a more serious conversation Hakeem Jeffries about a sovereign who's now nation the minority leader of the Senate,
and its right
is
and
at
duty
5%.
to secure its borders for law and
I mean, I'm
order.
not just talking single digits. I'm talking bottom half of single digits.
Apparently,
are all their names.
everything's hunky-dory
Nobody
if
sees
people are
them
breaking
as
into
leaders.
your house. The minute they break into
Do you know
our
who's number
house,
one on the
it's
Democrats
a real
list?
problem, and we send them
Joe
to a
Biden.
house in another country.
The
Or
sitting
another state.
president of the United States is at 12%. He's only seen as the leader of his party by 12%. Do you know who's number one? Don't know or didn't answer. 37%. And isn't it ironic? We're all waiting to see if 12% Joe Biden's running, while we're all sitting at 37% don't know or don't ask. And there's nobody waiting in the wings. That's why I think you're going to end up with either an old familiar name out of the blue or a new young governor. Now, for the Republicans, does it look any different? Kevin McCarthy, 1%. He's the Speaker of the House. He's at 1%. Jim Jordan, 1%. Nikki Haley, who just announced her presidency, 1%. Lindsey Graham, 1%. Ted Cruz, all those runs for president, all those champion arguments on the floor, 1%. George Bush, 1%. At least Barack Obama's still at 3%. Oops, here comes two numbers you're going to be very interested in. Number two, Donald Trump, 20%, according to this research, thinks Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. That's about where I'd put it. I'd probably put it higher at maybe 25 to 28%. And guess who's beating him in first place? Ron DeSantis, 22%. Oh, people are looking at states. Oh, people are looking to governors. You got a two-person race, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, with 34%. Don't know or didn't answer or want to see these two talk it over more. I think you got Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis on the Republican side. I think you got don't know or didn't answer on the Democrat side. And if I'm John Podesta, I come to the same conclusion I came to yesterday. I think word salad and all, senile and all, diaper and all, I think I'd stick with Joe Biden. I don't see it anywhere else. I'm Michael DelGiorno. If you think interest rates are still sky high, think again. They have now plummeted to the lowest. Mortgage rates have gone to their lowest in 5 months. So call my friends at Loan Pronto and see just how low. It may be time to start shopping again for a home. It may be time to redo that mortgage if you got locked into the 7s or 6s a year ago. A lot of us are struggling with high credit card debt and getting fleeced with ridiculous rates. To afford inflation, we need to free up cash flow. So we want to get rid of debt that's sucking up our cash flow. And you don't want any debt at all, but you certainly don't want any attached to a variable rate not to be ready for a recession. So get rid of all that credit card debt. Get rid of that high interest rate. APRs are now in the 4s, or get back to shopping and lock in your rate with Loan Pronto today. We can get it all done in 14 days. 499-5780. 499-5780. Call Loan Pronto today. 499-5780. Online at loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender. NMLS 166-1781. Subject to lender approval. I guess the next song I'll sing is True Colors Shining Through. I mean, this is classic. Have you ever seen a political move in political chess $11.54. In about 5 seconds, it's 11:55. 5 minutes before the Matt Murphy Show. Up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Red says, I'm surprised Mayor Pete hasn't gone down already. He's proven himself to be a total joke and incompetent. Well, I don't think that anybody in this president's cabinet, we had 29 candidates run for president for the Democrats, and there really was no winner. They all just got picked off one at a time. They were all rejected one at a time. They all had their time in the limelight, but eventually everybody turned their back on Elizabeth Warren. Everybody turned their back on, first, Kamala Harris. Even old Joe came in fourth in Iowa, seventh in New Hampshire. The only person in the last 3 presidential election cycles that keeps rising to the top and may again is Bernie Sanders, even at his age. Bernie Sanders would have got that nomination, not Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders would have got that nomination, not Joe Biden. They were ready to have a socialist candidate head up their presidency. And finally, they hid Joe in a basement and cut a deal in South Carolina and did what they had to do to save the democracy. The rest is history. But nobody from this candidate or other runs has benefited. The 2 biggest being Pete Buttigieg. He is no better off today. He is not set up better to run again for president and do well. He's set up to run for president and do poorly again. And so is Kamala Harris, and that's a big problem because she's on a sitting ticket. One person said, since when do you identify as an aunt? I must have been thinking in terms of if you were listening, you could have nieces and nephews. You could be an aunt. You could be an uncle. That would be somewhere on your list. Obviously, I'm just an uncle. I don't identify. I identify as broke. I identify as poor. Have no money. Race is a construct. Race is a man construct activity, a Darwin construct. Well, yeah, it's a biblical worldview versus a worldview. This is probably the best super text line of the day. So according to Pete, does that mean construction workers in the Green Hills area should wear Louis Vuitton hard hats? Yes, if they want to reflect their community, they definitely should. We would love to have you speak at our Men's Fellowship fire meeting. Not sure what that is, but as long as you're not walking on fire and coals, I might be interested in coming. Email me. Anyway, the super text line is always there. I don't even know all the places to get. I did find these cards from Dan Mandis. Does this constitute, in case we need to promote it? Or are these just his cheat sheet notes? Super Talk TV is on. Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Podcasts are now being done through Apple, which is great news.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts. Of course, some of you can just good old-fashioned listen at 99.7. Terrestrial, the old-fashioned way. To Matt Murphy, who is next. Television, I'm going back to The Last of Us. I've got 2 more episodes before I'm caught up. I think it's spectacular. But you got 911 Lone Star on Fox, Night Court on NBC. Should I give all the FBIs I've never watched on CBS and all the rookies on ABCs. I'm going to either say 911 Lone Star or join me in what I'm really going to watch, which is The Last of Us, which is an HBO, I believe. Is The Last of Us HBO or Apple? No, it's HBO. Last of Us is HBO.
HBO.
Ted Lasso, morning show.
I haven't seen Morning Show yet, but I keep hearing about that.
Spectacular.
That's Jennifer Aniston and
Tim, what's his
Steve
name?
Carell?
Steve Carell.
Yeah, Steve Carell.
Although I don't want to ruin it for you.
Don't ruin it. Don't do it.
Well, you won't see him in season 3. Let's just put it that way. All right, I ruined it for you. I'm like the Chiefs. I cheated.
Ridiculous.
The Last of Us. That's my pick to click for television tonight. All right, Matt Murphy Show is next. Hope you had fun today. I appreciate you joining us. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 right here on WTN.